This is Greg Locke, and he is probably most famous for being deathly afraid of witches. Apparently, as it turns out, somebody has been going to his church and slipping tarot cards under the wood chips, because he holds his services in a big circus tent with a wood chip ground or whatever, and they've been putting tarot cards under the wood chips, and it's been freaking him out hard. Listen to what he had to say here, July 6, 2022.
People take little tarot cards, the spirit of Santeria and things like that, and they slip them under the chips. I think we'd be shocked at what's under these chips.
Interesting way to protest, in my opinion, putting tarot cards under his wood chips like that. I think I'm a fan. He's so freaked out about this that he performed an exorcism on his congregation. He thought that they were being possessed by demons because there are tarot cards under the wood chips.
So before I start talking about the cult, here's what I'm going to say. If we got any spirits in this room tonight connected to the occult, right this moment you leave this room, and right this moment you come up and you get out. I want every spirit right now connected to a fortune teller, connected to a tarot card, or connected to a psychic reading to leave these people right now in the name of Jesus Christ. Every spirit and demon.
Okay, so he runs this exorcism on his people, right? And he thought that that solved the problem. Apparently, it didn't solve the problem because a month later, he comes out on stage and makes an announcement.
But then after mass deliverance, all the chairs are coming up because we're going to do something that's going to kind of get rid of the nostalgia effect of the tent meeting, but we have to do it. We're having some skid loaders coming here tomorrow. We're getting rid of all these cedar chips, and we're going with the turf all the way through the entire tent because these witches keep slipping in here, hiding stuff in the chips, hiding pentagrams and amulets and all kind of little infinity symbols and tarot cards. I won't be surprised. We pull that stuff up. There might be a full-blown Ouija board up under these chips.
I love it, dude. He is so bent out of shape and freaked out over just pieces of cardboard. Seriously, Greg, it's pieces of cardboard. It's fake, okay? It has no power over anything. He cannot accept that. He is obsessed with the idea that there is some kind of a demon attached to this stuff that is trying to possess his congregation. It is so entertaining to watch and so sad at the same time, you know? I would feel bad if the guy wasn't deeply hateful.
That's why perverts and are in our schools right now. And by the way, they in our churches now too. Drag queen story hour. So you ought not use the word they ought not be one.
If he didn't use slurs to refer to various groups of people, I would feel bad. But he does do that, so I don't feel bad. I'm sorry. I can't. I just don't. And that brings us to our very first voicemail of the day. Check this out.
Hey, Owen, this is Tony from Texas. I was just watching your video here about Greg Locke losing his mind over tarot cards. I don't know what removing the chips is going to do. A roll of tape and tarot cards will stick just fine underneath their chairs. I don't know. Take care, man. Bye.
Yeah, I appreciate it. Yeah, that's a good point. So Greg Locke is so freaked out over tarot cards being stuck under the wood chips at his circus tent of a church that he's removing the wood chips and putting in turf. He's putting in grass, basically, right? That's weird, because there are still chairs there. You can still put tape on a tarot card and stick it under the chair, can't you? That's kind of interesting. Guess the dude didn't think that one through. He is bound to remain freaked out over the stupidest stuff because he refuses to see reason and use logic and basic logical thinking and recognize that tarot cards are just pieces of cardboard, nothing more, nothing less. Like I said, I'd feel bad if he weren't so hateful, just straight up hateful about everything that he says and does. If he didn't use slurs against groups of people, I would feel bad, but here we are.
Hey, Owen, this thing with Trump, this is about the worst crime he can commit against the United States. Do you think?
Just a little bit of context on this. If you're watching this 5 years in the future, Donald Trump just got his house searched, his mansion, by the FBI because he stole classified documents that contained national defense information. I mean, real stuff. I'm talking top secret classified stuff that isn't even supposed to leave a bunker. It's so sensitive. It contains like human asset information and nuclear weapons information, apparently. Like we don't We're not even allowed to know what it contains. It is so sensitive. Seriously. Extremely sensitive stuff. So let's keep listening here.
Do you think it's actually going to make a difference? Are they going to do anything to remove him?
Well, luckily the guy isn't in office anymore. We don't have to remove him, but I know what you meant when you said remove him. I assume you mean, are they going to send him to jail, remove him from society? And I don't think so. No, I don't think so. But it will show that there is accountability for everybody, first of all. It will show that if you break the law, no matter who you are, there is a chance that you will be arrested for it. You are not guaranteed a free pass or a get-out-of-jail-free card. And just the knowledge that you may not get away with something may prevent people from doing it in the first place, which could preserve the democracy. We need accountability like that. Is he going to be charged for this? Probably. Is he going to jail for it? Probably not. He may get home confinement. Hell, he may even get pardoned by Biden to try to mend the whatever. I don't know. Who knows? I don't think he's going to spend a day in jail, but I do think he'll be charged for it. Time will tell.
Hey, Owen, this is Alex. I'm calling from New York, and I got a
Hey, me too. Awesome.
And I got a question for you. I know in a lot of your videos you talk about being, nonviolent and everything, and I agree with that 100%. I do have a question for you, though. What are your thoughts on self-defense? I ask that because I actually own a martial arts school and teach self-defense. And I tell everybody, that fighting is stupid, but self-defense is not. So I wanted to get your thoughts on that too. Is there like a point where violence, a quote unquote, is necessary? Or, again, I like to say self-defense, but violence, quote unquote, is necessary. Love the show. Thank you very much. And have a good one.
Yeah, I appreciate it. Interesting question. Well, first of all, there are two different contexts in which violence is or isn't acceptable in my mind. If it's just like on a one-on-one basis, like an individual thing, and somebody is attacking you, violence is 100% justified to protect yourself. If you're a woman alone in a parking lot and somebody comes up to you and they're trying to hurt you or something, violence is completely justified, no question asked. But there's another context we're dealing with, which is political violence. And I would argue there is no political issue in America today that violence would solve. I mean, really think about this for a second. We want abortion rights back, right? This is just some basic issue out there. We want abortion rights back. What violent action could we do to get it back? There's nothing. There is no act that we could perpetrate. Nothing. Because it was a legal process that abolished it. We have to go through legal processes to reinstate it. There is no violent act that would do that for us. It has to be a legal process. So on a political stage, when we're dealing with political violence or whatever, I don't stand for it under any circumstances, because for one thing, it wouldn't do anything for anybody. And for another thing, it would make everyone's lives around us miserable. It's not an acceptable solution to problems. I think it's totally acceptable if you are defending yourself. That's the only situation in which I think it's okay. The problem arises when people play with the word defend or violence. They'll say it's okay to use violence against somebody else if they used it against you first. And then they'll play with the word violence by saying, well, by not speaking up in my defense, they're being violent against me. Silence is violence. No, that's incorrect. No, violence has a very specific definition, and playing with the definition of it like that isn't helping anything or anybody, in my opinion. That's why I say political violence is unacceptable in any circumstances, period. In a realistic situation, just like one-on-one kind of thing where you are physically being attacked and somebody physically strikes at you first, I think it's okay. Self-defense is warranted. That's just my take. Next one's an email. The title is Just a Note About Cat Kerr reference. Hey, Owen, years ago I watched a movie called Latter Days. Last night I decided to rewatch it, and at a point between the 32 and 33 minute mark, the bartender makes a reference to Kat Kerr that I never caught on to the first time I watched it. The bartender basically says it'll be 3 a.m. and you'll have your Visa card out and you'll be giving all your money to the crazy with the lavender hair. This time I burst out laughing, having made the connection, thanks to you. Been following you for a couple years now, and the only criticism I have is that sometimes you allow your reminders of who these wacko mega preachers are and what they preach to go on a bit too long. I appreciate that. Yeah, if you're unfamiliar with Kat Kerr, let me just play one basic clip. Let's see. Let's just go through. You know what? Let's pick this one because she's wearing a snazzy outfit. Snaz Central over here. Snaz City, if you will. Doesn't get snazzier than this outfit that she's wearing right now. Let's just see what she has to say. I haven't, vetted this yet or anything. This is from early August 2022.
Here's when Angel is asking, are there skating rinks in heaven? My kids inline speed skate.
And so, yes, there is not just inline skating and not just rollers. Yes, of course, there's roller rinks. People who are Christians who ran one because that was their gift, they'll be doing that in heaven. But there is extreme sports in heaven, like skateboarding, like on these 100-foot loops and jumps on your skateboards. And some of them can fly. The skateboards fly. You control them while you're flying on them and do all kinds of different tricks and stuff there in heaven.
Yeah, so that's Kat Kerr. That's who they were talking about. I appreciate the email. That's absolutely crazy, man. And regarding the reminders, yeah, typically when I do videos, I want to give reminders about who people are and break down some of the crazier things that they've said leading up to the clips that I cover. I get that can be kind of frustrating for some people, but the majority of the people that watch the videos have never seen my channel before or have never seen a video about Kat Kerr before, including any of mine. So I want to give enough lead up and explanation to who these people are and what they've said so that they have the context necessary to understand what I'm talking about in the clip. That's generally why I do breakdowns and introductions to these people. But anyways, yeah, I appreciate the email. It's really interesting. This one is titled QAnon in Australia. Hi, I'm a new fan here, and while I live in Australia, I do find some of the people you talk about fascinating. Anyhow, my question is this. How does the belief of QAnon, a very American belief, somehow appear here, where most of the ideas don't apply? I don't really understand how that sort of thing can spread here, especially considering that Australia's political environment is pretty different to America. Hope all is well. Quentin. Yeah, I appreciate the email. It's interesting how it spreads from place to place, right? I think it's spread like that at least partly because people in other countries have family members in the U.S. who have kind of adopted the American culture as their own and hang out with family members in the U.S. and see them adopting Trumpism, the religion, and decide to pick it up for themselves. And I think it spreads from there. It's like an enthusiasm thing. They're extremely excited over what Donald Trump has to offer for one reason or another. That being said, I happen to know that it's Prime Minister in Australia, right? I think it's the Prime Minister, the last one, not the current one. He was a conservative. I think his best friend was deeply entrenched in the QAnon belief system and talked the Australian leader into starting a commission that would investigate CSA in religious organizations and government organizations to find out if there really are these rings of traffickers going around and mistreating kids and stuff, and how rampant it is, because they were convinced, because of their QAnon beliefs, that the government and religions were these gigantic trafficking rings and stuff. Thus formed the Royal Australian Commission, or the Australian Royal Commission, which is the thing that went after Jehovah's Witnesses to determine their level of culpability in CSA, child mistreatment, basically. Now, they just so happen to be correct in going after Jehovah's Witnesses for their involvement or lack thereof in child mistreatment within the religion. I'm trying to be really careful how I word things. I'm sorry. They were correct by happenstance. The commission was started because of QAnon, but it did actually end up doing some good. Unfortunately for QAnon, it didn't uncover this massive ring of traffickers that are like controlling the government and all of these religions and the deep state and blah, 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 you know. So anyway, that's kind of interesting. It's weird to see how it spreads from country to country, even when it doesn't really affect those countries. And I think it's because we're all very much a connected world, and the world is very America-centric in many ways. Like, the internet specifically is very heavily focused on America. Like, everything is America, America, America on the internet, you know. Even though, even for people who don't live here, it's constantly just all about America, everything that happens around them, for one reason or another. Probably because America is like practically a game show that's just gone sideways by now, and the rest of the world can't help but watch it disintegrate in front of them. So anyway, hopefully that answered your question. It was an interesting point. Thank you so much for the email. I got a voicemail from somebody, but they specifically requested I do not play their voice because they don't like the sound of it. So I'll just tell you what they said. They heard me talking about how Roger Stone was involved in Watergate, and they begged to differ. So I went in search of it to find out if this is true. Was Roger Stone involved in it? This is an interesting little section on Roger Stone's Wikipedia page about his involvement in Watergate and with Nixon and stuff like that. So I wanted to take a look at it and see what it had to say about Roger Stone and his involvement in Watergate. Stone's political career began in earnest on the 1972 Nixon campaign, with activities such as contributing money to a possible rival of Nixon in the name of the Young Socialist Alliance, and then slipping the receipt to the Manchester Union leader. So Roger Stone donated to Nixon's political opponent in the name of the Young Socialist Alliance and then gave the receipt to a newspaper. That's the kind of dirty thing that Roger Stone has been doing for 50 years at this point. Seriously. That's who this guy is. That's who he's always been. Eventually, Magruder and Herbert Porter hired Roger Stone to spy on rival presidential campaigns during the 1972 Democratic Party presidential primaries. Stone subsequently hired Michael McInoway to infiltrate campaigns of candidates such as Edmund Muskie and Hubert Humphrey. He also hired a spy in the Humphrey campaign, who became Humphrey's driver. According to Stone, during the day he was officially a scheduler in the Nixon campaign, but by night I'm trafficking in the black arts. So he was a professional scumbag, basically. He went around and did scumbag things for Richard Nixon. He did whatever it took to win Nixon votes, including but not limited to setting people up, extorting them, blackmailing them, lying about them, all of that stuff. He was 20 years old, and he was Nixon's lapdog. During the campaign, Nixon's people were obsessed with intelligence, he said. This is a quote directly from Roger Stone. Stone maintains he never did anything illegal during the Watergate scandal. Well, of course he would make that claim. But he was involved with Nixon and doing dirty stuff like that for the guy at the time. The Richard Nixon Foundation later clarified that Stone had been a 20-year-old junior scheduler on the campaign, and that to characterize Stone as one of Nixon's aides or advisors was a gross misstatement. So maybe he didn't have anything to do with Watergate. Maybe not. He was a professional scumbag for Nixon, and he was involved in his campaign around the time all of that was happening. So I would be surprised if he wasn't involved in that to some degree, but who knows? Who knows for sure? The guy says he wasn't, so.